Mesh buys the.
Okay. Good morning. You didn't start yet now?
You got it.
Wow. Can I ask you a real quick question?
Okay, it's good. It's good. It's good with everybody. It's good with me.
An Evid cannot be, we were just learning, cannot be a witness in, cannot be aid.
Yes,
I don't know, let's say in damages.
right.
And the reason they say is because he doesn't have yachas. So what does that mean that he doesn't have yachas and that's why he can't be an aid? Does it mean that he can't own property and he's going to be an aid? Does that mean that he wouldn't be able to own property?
I don't know, I've seen the Gemara aside, but the way I would hear it for you is not that that's the reason, but it means that if we find him, he's possible aidus. He's not valid the witness. And probably the Gemara is just saying over there, not that's the reason, but that you find that he's possible and you can't learn out to other people who have don't have that deficiency. Maybe the reason that he's possible has
They
something
said
to do with the
a
deficiency.
goy does have yachas.
Right, so you wouldn't be able to learn, both of them are not good faiths, but you wouldn't be able
No,
to
you
know
said you
one
need
from
both
the
of
other.
them. So I'm just understanding, what is it but yachas?
That just means that he's attributed to his father. His father is considered his father. I go.
Yeah, we don't know. And Evid, we don't know who.
Never, he's not that we don't know. He's not considered related to his father. The same way that
He's not considered related to his father, so
Right.
why is that bad for
that's
aidus?
that's a deficiency. He's not full.
It doesn't mean that he's gonna lie.
No, I don't think it has to do with that.
It only has to
that
do
they
with
have
being a deficiency inherent in his being.
Right, and that might be a reason that you can't apply to a guy because the guy does have a relationship to his father.
So it's not enough for that.
Okay, welcome everybody,
Thank you.
and we're in Nazir.
We made it. You're making it.
Nazir Daf Dalin.
Nazir
Uh,
Daf,
24A.
Daf Chaf Dalet.
So we had the mention of this mission earlier, and I think even though we spoke about Megas Gaius and when a husband nullifies his wife's neder, it wasn't so simple in the Gemara, but it does seem simple in the Mishnayos. The Gemara brought these Mishnayos, and I imagine the Gemara said you could deflect all of these proofs, but the Pasha says Megas Gaius, and we could learn the Mishnayos like that. So even though the Gemara said other shot, then we'll go to the Mishnayos that when a husband nullifies his wife's neder, it's just from here on in, it's offered. It doesn't take it off retroactively, so the Mishnayos will be easy to learn. So here goes. The case is, we had this all before. That's the case. A woman made herself a Nazira, and she also designated the animals that she needs to bring for the Kabbanis when she's successfully going to finish the Naziras. But then her husband then nullified her Naziras. So what I should do with the Kabbanis? So
She already,
she designated them. So we'll say it's simple that if you hold that it gets uprooted retroactively, there would be nothing. Everything would be off. But we're going to go now, Megas guys, that there's only off from here on in, not retroactively. So the Kabbanis were made at a time when she really was a Nazira. So it took effect maybe. That's going to be the rest of the Mishnah. What do you do with the Kabbanis? So the first case is, if she designated her husband's behema. She designated her husband's animal for her Kabbanis. So it doesn't take effect. Nothing happens since the Naziris is off. So then the animal is chulin. It should go back into the flock like everybody else, like all the other sheep. Don't get Teitzev doesn't mean tirat shetestoi. It doesn't mean that pasturing until it gets some more. It means go back into the flock and everything's fine. It's rechulin. The animal did not become a korban. The Gemara is going to discuss why. Does the husband have to designate the animals for his wife's korbanos? So right here it says that if she designated her husband's animal at the end, she doesn't need it because her husband nullified her Nazirus, even though she was a Nazira. But since the husband cut it off and stopped it, and now the korban is not necessary, so that animal doesn't become holy.
did she have the right to designate something that doesn't belong to her?
Yeah, but it's her husband's. Maybe your husband is obligated to bring her korbanos. That's the Gemara's discussion. Does the husband included in his obligations to his wife? Is it to bring her korbanos?
She became a Nazir, and she knows that if her husband agrees, he'll be agreeable to this cow.
Maybe he's a chayv to bring her.
This
No
kevis,
cows over here. Right?
Kevin,
no cows,
okay,
yeah.
whatever it is.
So
He'll be agreeable.
maybe he's going to be obligated to bring her korbanos if she would go through with it. But here that she didn't go through with it, here it says that the korbanos don't take effect, and it goes fooling. We'll see the Gemara, but that's the case of the Mishnah. That's the halach of the Mishnah. If it was his animals that she designated, they're chulin. If it was her animal, if she designated her own animal, so what's the case now that she cut off? That it was cut off. Not that it went off retroactively, it just got canceled from here on. So the animal, when she designated it, it was holy, and now she doesn't need it anymore. What does she do with these three animals? So we know that there are three animals. There's a chatas, a ola, and a shlomim. A chatas is a kivsa, ola is a keves, and a shlomim is a
And I'm
keves.
sorry, which one? The shlomim is a
Oh, you're right. The ayil, you're right. You're 100% right.
aisle. with an
It's an
aleph.
ayil, right?
Okay.
It's an ayil, right? El Nazir. I told of El Nazir, Kadosh and Kavan. That's the those who say the Kavanas in the morning. I told of El Nazir. This is the El Nazir. I told of El Nazir, Kadosh and
El Nazir,
Kavan. This
yeah.
is the ayil El Nazir. That's the Shlomo. So what do you do with these three animals? She has three animals that she doesn't need because the Naziris got canceled. So what happens to these animals? Achatas tamus, ola tikar v'ola, shlomim tikar v'shlomim.
Tammuz, you let it, you
So I'll
kill
say,
it.
I'll then translate it.
Okay.
So it has to do with the chatas, you let it die. That means, however you let it die, put it into a room, don't give it food, it dies. Means that's the luck you do with the chatas, that's not necessary. Chatas that you don't, it is a chatas. That's what the Gemara looks at. It is a chatas. Why is it a chatas? Because when she made herself a Nazira, she really was. And she designated an animal, so it's really chatas. It's designated to be what she needs. Then it got canceled. So you could say the same way, the was going to say the same way, let's say the person would die. It doesn't need anymore, or the person got used the carbon already, a different carbon. So in chatas that you don't need, you let it die. So this chatas also, it's not needed anymore. So you let it die. The ola, an ola you could use as an ola, even though she's not a nazir anymore, you could bring an ola for a nadava. You could
Tikra.
what?
Therefore, it says tikra.
I'll let the tikar ola because no problem. The chatas you can't bring a chatas if there's no chi of chatas, but the ola you could. So ola tikar ola and the shlamim also tikar shlamim. You could bring a shlamim. You're allowed to bring a shlamim, but there's a difference between a regular shlamim and a el nazir, like you say in Kabbanis. I told about nazir kadosh and kalim, and then it says, but it's nechal le yom v'layla, only for one day and a night, not like a regular shlamim. That's 2 days and a night. And also there's a special halacha by the el nazir that it has to bring with breads. There's certain breads you bring along with that. Here the Mishnah says that we give it to chumras, but not everything. We're machmer to eat it within 1 day, not give it like a regular shlamim, which is 2 days and a night. But it's not going to be chayv the bread since it's not really el nazir anymore because she's not a nazira. It became sanctified because she made it when she was a nazira, so it has a kedusha of a shlamim. But we're not going to bring the bread because now she's not a nazira. That's what to do with the kabbanis.
So then why did 1 day?
Because we're giving it to chumrah, right? We're giving it to chumrah, even though I'm David saying if it's not a real el nazir anymore, so then why not make it a regular shlamim? Because it was made into an el nazir. So we give it. If you can be machmer something, so just eat it within 1 day. You don't lose anything. You lose if you didn't eat it, but eat it within 1 day. And as far as the bread, you can't bring the bread because she's not really a nazir anymore. So that's what you do with the kabbanis. All this was talking about that she designated an animal. First, he said if he designated his animal, it's nothing. He designated her animal, so that has kedusha. And each one you do whatever you have to do. The chatas she can't do anything; she have to let it die. The ola you could bring, the shlamim you could bring, but eat it within 1 day like el nazir. But it doesn't need bread like an el nazir because she's not a nazir. There's another case that talks about that she didn't designate an animal; she designated money for the kabbanis. And there are 2 ways that's called by the money. There's most stuman and most mufurashin. Most stuman means that she designated money for the kabbanis, but she didn't say which money is for which carbon. There are 3 kabbanis she has to bring: a chatas, a ola, and a shlamim. But she just designated money, and she didn't designate which money is for what. That's called most stuman.
I'm sorry, I'm stuck on the chatas, the kivsa chatas.
Why?
It's from now on, we're saying.
Now it's canceled
Yeah, so she really did part of it. So why wouldn't you bring chatas?
because she's not a nazira now. She's not.
You
a
only
nazira.
bring it at the end if it's a full naziris.
Right.
And you can't bring it if it's a partial nazir.
Right.
Okay.
Uvim los. Yeah. How does it go? Biyom los. When she finishes, when she the kabbanis of the nazir is when she finishes. She doesn't finish because it got canceled in the middle.
Okay.
So
if somebody is not knows and mafresh kabbanis because he says he's going to become a knows in the future, that's not how.
is it possible to designate a korban nazir before the person is a nazir? I think you brought this up a couple of days ago. Is that possible? If someone designated a korban nazir before they became a nazir, is it possible to do such a thing? So I don't know the answer. How would it affect our issue?
No, I'm just saying because then she could become a knows in the future. So maybe it would be good.
Why not save it around? Why not save it around for a future or give it to somebody?
Yeah, somebody else. I don't know.
give it to somebody who's a Nazir? Is it possible? If she designated it for her, I don't know. I don't know these halachas. Nice
I'm
point.
also worried
The
about
same thing,
how do you
listen,
do-
No, that's not the shit. Whatever you have to do, you have to do. Like if it's a carbon that you can't bring, so that's the tamas is the tamas.
well, you build it to put it out of its misery.
You can't kill it because you can't actively kill a carbon.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Fine.
okay, no, like that, you know this. Can she be mafish a carbon before she has a baby, or she has to?
Uh-huh.
Really? I
If
think-
she's doing it,
Oh,
if she's doing it for
yeah.
herself, I imagine that you can't do these things before a person has a chiyuv. By El Nazir, maybe there's a question because they're on a Nazirim that could become Nazirim. Is it possible? I can't. I'd rather not say because I don't
Okay.
know. I
Okay.
would like to say that you can't designate something that doesn't exist. But I don't remember. I thought we had something about this a couple of weeks ago, but it slips me. I don't remember. Okay, better to say I don't know. Safe. Okay, the next case. So she designated money that she didn't say which the money is going to be used for. In general, for these carbonas, but she didn't say for which carbon. Just this money, she put aside money for those carbonas. So yipsul in a dava, make all of them to be a carbon ola. The dava means she's going to use the money to buy a carbon ola because she didn't designate that's going to be for all three. It doesn't have to be used for all three. It can be used for any one.
She
And-
put aside money and said, this is gonna be for. when
For
I
my
make
karbanas nazir, right,
Yeah.
which includes the chatas ola and the shlamim, and she could use all the money for any one of them. They got
Yeah,
no money,
'cause
so
that's
she
what
doesn't have to
it's
bring. So the best thing is to bring an ola, and
Yeah.
then it's a full ola. No difficulties with that. What if she had money that she did designate what it's for? That she said this money
So the
is for
problem
chatas,
It's for chatas. that's the
right, and this money is for ola, this money is for shlamim. So we're going to translate it the same thing we did before by the actual animals. It's going to translate to the same thing over here. If she had more for Russian, she had money which was designated, specified money, what each one was for. So the Dmei Chatas is the same thing as letting it die, but here it's easier. You just get rid of the money. Yelchul Yam HaMelech, put it into the Dead Sea, in a place where nobody's going to get to it, means that it's holy and you want to make sure that nobody is going to use it for anything. So you put it into a place where nobody's going to use it. So on the bottom of the Dead Sea, nobody's going to get there. No nen molin. That's as far as
Is it
Me'ilah.
also because it's gonna disintegrate
I don't
as
think
opposed to
so.
burying it?
burying it might eventually. Okay, you think that someone might get to it still. That's the point.
Yeah.
Someone might get to it, and nobody's going to get to it.
We're throwing it.
Nobody's
into,
going to get to it. Middle of the ocean, the
No,
bottom of
not
the
Vesuvius, I forget what we call those things.
into one
A volcano.
a volcano. I don't know if you're allowed to. Are you allowed to actively destroy it? I don't know. Are you allowed to destroy it? Take it? Destroy it.
Dina de Malchus, definitely not.
One.
Dina de Malchus, definitely
Okay,
not.
that's not the subject. Okay,
Okay.
a lot of I don't knows today, and I don't know.
Okay. We have
May-
the Dead Sea, it's very convenient. Throw it in.
The This the Mepharshim say could have spoken about the animal also. Is this animal? Is it me'ilah? If somebody's going to benefit this carbon chatas, the one we did before chatas tamus is the same thing as this money. The mei chatas goes to Yamamelech. It's the same thing. So there's midarbanan. You're not allowed to benefit from it like a carbon because it is a carbon
We're not benefiting from what?
from the
To
money
make chatas or
or
all
from
of them?
either from the chatas or from the demei chatas. The other ones are going to be carbonas. Over there is going to be me'ilah. We'll see in a line. But by
So
the
we're
chatas,
talking
it's
about
not
the
going to be
demei
bought
chatas.
only the chatas money or the chatas animal. That
That
it's not going to be used for a carbon. It's not going to be for a carbon. So the term lonen and v'lamolin, you find a lot of times in Shas. That mean when it says lonen and v'lamolin means with the rabbanan you're not allowed to benefit from it. But if you did, it's not the raisa. This is not a way of saying that it's not the raisa, but it is rabbanan. Lomolin means that there's no mila. So if someone benefits from it, he's not chayv mila. It's not called that he did it. It's the raisa. But rabbanan, you're not allowed to lonen. You're not allowed to benefit from it. But if you did, it's not mila. This is because since the carbon chatas or the money for the chatas is not going to actually be used for the carbon, so there's no mi'ilah daraisa. But Rabbanan, they still say don't use it. Treat it as if it is kodesh, and you're not allowed to benefit from it, even though if you would, there wouldn't be mi'ilah.
Okay.
The me'ola, how about the money that was designated for the carbon ola? Yaviu ola, bring the carbon ola. That's what you're supposed to do if it be an animal. So go ahead. And more than that, here there is mi'ilah because since it's bought for a carbon, and the money which is designated is going to be bought for a carbon, so there is mi'ilah if somebody would benefit from that money. The mei shlamim, yaviu shlamim, and the same thing. The same thing as that. The money is the same as the animals. But the chata, if there be an animal chatas, it would die. So the money for the chatas goes to Yamamelech. If it would be animal that's an ola, bring it for an ola. So the money also is used for an ola. If it would be money for the shlamim, you bring the shlamim that you would only eat within 1 day and not you bring the bread. So too, the money should be used for that. Bring a korban shlomim and eat it within 1 day, and don't bring bread.
And so these are the monies that she designates for these 3 carbonas, and then what
Right.
you do with the money if
Right. If it was canceled,
and she didn't even get to buying the animal. That's what I'm understanding.
Right. The first case was when she bought that. They
Right.
designated the animal. Second case is when she just designated money. Sometimes she designates it without specifying which money is for what, and sometimes she does specify. So the Mishnah goes through the whole halacha, and it's very easy to understand the Mishnah. Megas Gaius that it was discontinued. That's the way to say it. It was discontinued. The Nazir was discontinued, but it didn't cancel it retroactively. So therefore, the animals are holy at the time that she made them holy, and she has to know what to do with these holy animals, or holy money. And the case of the husband's money, that she had no right to do for some reason, we'll see in a second, and therefore that doesn't take effect, and cooling. So the Gemara is wondering why if she designated his animal, why is it nothing? Mantana, the Baal Lo Mishtabala, who's the author of our Mishnah holds that the husband does not obligated to bring his wife's karbanos, because the Gemara understands if the husband is obligated to bring his wife's karbanos, so there shouldn't be any difference if it's his animal or her animal. She had the right to designate his animal also. Is the husband obligated in the chiyuv iksuba? Is the husband obligated to bring his wife's karbanos? Nowadays we don't have that karbanos, we don't have that issue. But other things that a husband's chayiv to give her food, to give her clothing, is he chayiv to pay for her karbanos that she's supposed to bring? So if she becomes a nazira, does he have to bring her karbanos? So if our Mishnah says that it was his animal that she designated, it's chulin. In this case, that it was discontinued. So why is there a difference between his animal and her animal? If he's mechuyev to pay for her nazirus animals, so at the time when she designated it, it was she had the right to do that.
Maybe she took it without reshut.
But that's the point. If he's obligated, says that, then she has rishus. If he's obligated, so means that he has to.
He's not in agreement.
He has to be in agreement because he's obligated. Same way he has to give her food. He has to pay for her karbanos. Is she allowed to take something out of the refrigerator?
Not
Yes.
agreement with her becoming a nazira, and she did it behind his back.
So he has the right to cancel it, and he did cancel it. But since he only cancels it, it's true. But even if he cancels it, he's only canceling it from now on. It's discontinued. At the time, she wasn't a zero, so he's trying to bring her karbanos. So why doesn't it take effect?
He has to let the animal graze.
No.
It said here that if it's his, you put it out to graze.
Right. So I tried to stress, but I didn't stress it enough, that it doesn't mean graze and wait till he gets a moment. Graze and have a good time and do whatever you want.
Oh, that's right. It goes back.
It's chulin.
It's cool and goes back to him. I mean,
It's nothing. It's garnished. They say in Yiddish, garnished. It's a garnished.
It's garnished, and that would be low.
That means he's not obligated to bring her
Stop it.
karbanos. And is that true? Is that true that husband's not obligated to bring her karbanos? Who's the author?
Somebody's like,
Who's the author of this Mishnah that says the husband's not obligated to bring her karbanos? So the Gemara found the machlokas. Is the husband obligated to bring his wife's karbanos? Machlokas. Amar, is the Rabbanan he? It's the Rabbanan who hold that a husband is not obligated to bring his wife's karbanos, because Rabbi Yehuda is going to argue and say that he is obligated. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, there wouldn't be a difference between his animals and her animals. You have to talk about Rabbi Yehuda. Why is it fooling? He is obligated to bring her karbanos, and it's going to bring now a Mishnah. It says here the Tanya, but most of it is a Mishnah in the Goyim, that towards the end of the Goyim. And the question is, a husband have to bring the karbanos of his wife. And over there, Rabbi Yehuda says that he does. A husband has to bring the karbanos of his wife. Over there, the issue is about a korban osher or a korban ani. That there are some karbanos that depends if he's if the person is bringing the korban, if he's rich or not. There's a leniency for a poor person to bring different kind of karbanos. One of them is by a mitzvah over there, by the goyim. That there's a chatas and a ola that either if you're rich, you bring animals, but if the mitzvah is poor, so you bring birds. So what's the din if a husband's bringing the karbanos of his wife? So if he's obligated to bring her karbanos and he's rich, so then he's rich. So he has to bring the rich man's karbanos. If he's not obligated and the woman is obligated, she happens to be poor because all her money belongs to him. So if then he could bring if he wants to bring the korban for her, he could bring it, but he doesn't have to bring a rich man's korban. If a rich man wants to donate the poor man's karbanos, do him a favor, so he doesn't have to pay for a rich man's karbanos. So that's what the Bryce over there is talking about, the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, other maybe korban ashal lishto, that Rabbi Yehuda holds that a person does have to bring the rich man's korban for his wife because he's rich and he's obligated to bring her karbanos. If he wouldn't be obligated,
Are you designate how much a man gives to his wife according to how much money he has?
if he's poor, then he's poor. But if that's not the point. Is it his obligation or is it not his obligation? If it's an obligation, so he's rich, A regular Matzorah comes. We ask him, how much money do you have? What's your bank account? We'll tell you if you have to bring a rich korban or poor man's korban. Are you eligible for the discount? So it depends if he's rich or poor. Now, a man is coming for his wife's korban. So he's rich and she's poor. So does he have to bring a rich man's korban or not? If he's obligated to bring her korbanos, he's a rich man. So you don't get the discount. But if it's her obligation, he's just doing her a favor, so to speak. So then he doesn't have to pay the rich man's korban. She's only a poor man's korban. So Rabbi Yehuda says that he has to pay the rich man's korban because Rabbi Yehuda holds he's obligated to bring his wife's korbanos. Rabbi Yehuda to make a korban usher, so he has to bring a rich man's korban for his wife because he's obligated. Any korban that she's chayiv, he has to bring. So too, in our Mishnah, the Gemara understands, Rabbi Chis understands that according to Rabbi Yehuda, if she designated his animals, it would become holy because she has a right to do that because he has to bring her korbanos. Our Mishnah must be the Rabbanan who argue and say that a husband is not mechuyev to bring his wife's korbanos. The end of the Bryce over here says, "Shekach kasav lo kol achrayis d'islach alayim min kadmes deno." So literally, those words means because he wrote to her all the achrayis, all the guarantees that you have upon me from before, from until now. So it's strange what the words are talking about, but not so clear what the words are talking about. It has something to do with if he writes to her, so that means he wrote for her in the ksuba that I'm chayiv to give you all the achrayis for everything that I have to give you. The kadmas dana does not. So what does the kadmas dana means from before? Kadmas dana means from before, not from here on in, the opposite of it, from here on in. And kadmas dana from before, min kodem. Or they have a girsa shachach service low that she's writing a shomer when she's getting divorced, and she writes a receipt that she got paid for everything that he's chayiv to have given her. And the question is, what do you see in all these words? How do you see it has something to do with karbanos? As if it says here that in the receipt that she's giving him for everything that he had to have paid for, or if it says here everything that he has to pay for, someplace it says here karbanos, and we don't see it. I don't see it in the words that it says anything about karbanos. It says anything I'm chayiv to give you. So as if the wife writes a receipt, anything that he was chayiv to give me, he gave me. He gives her, she gives him a receipt. So how do you say anything about karbanos? Does it say he's chayiv in karbanos? So I don't know. It means these last words over here, I didn't get the pshat. How do you see that it means karbanos over here? But this is what it says in the Brisa. This is the proof, so to speak, that the husband is chayiv to pay for his wife's karbanos. So these words here,
doesn't she have achrayus? If she's the Nazir, doesn't she have achrayus to bring a korban?
That's not the words over there. The words over there is not. That means you chayiv to be a korban. It doesn't do achrayus. Achrayus means something about his responsibility to her responsibility. You know, any achrayus, this luck. So the words that it says here is that husband is talking to the woman. He's writing a contract to her. All the achrayus that you have upon me from beforehand.
Anything that you have achrayus, that you have
upon me, that you have a claim against me for achrayus. Any achrayus that you have against me, that means against me. Doesn't mean that you're responsible. I'm responsible. So whatever it's talking about, it's not clear. It's talking about the ksuba that he's writing. It's talking about the receipt that she's writing. And how do you see in these words that it means karbanos? Maybe it means the achrayus that he had to pay for her mazonos, and it's all paid up already. She's giving her a receipt for all. He took care of all his responsibilities. So I don't see in the words how you know that it means karbanos, but that's what it says here. The main point is to say that Rabbi Yehuda holds that a man is chayiv for his wife's karbanos, and therefore the Mishnah would not fit with him. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, that the husband does have to pay for his wife's karbanos. So if she designated his animal, it also should be kodesh because he has such a responsibility. So the Mishnah must be Rabbanan. That was what Chisda said. Rava argues, Rava Amar Afi the same Rabbi Yehuda. Amish is fine with Rabbi Yehuda also, even though he is chayiv to pay for his wife's korban. But if she designated it and then the Nazirus was discontinued, he doesn't have to give the korban. What is he obligated for? Something that she needs. Karbanos at the end, but he's not mechuyev to her reasons. If at the end it didn't follow through because he chose to cancel it, to discontinue it, so it didn't come to fruition, the Nazirus didn't come. So I don't have to give a korban that you didn't. Who told you to designate it? If it would have gone through, so it's true. I have to give a korban for you. But you chose to designate it before the Nazirus was finished, and at the end it didn't finish because I discontinued it. He's not mechuyev to give her the korban that she doesn't need at the end. So even Rabbi Yehuda could agree with our Mishnah also. All that was one version of Chisda and Rava to explain who our Mishnah is. If Chisda said only the Rabbanan, Rava said even Rabbi Yehuda. Now it's going to be Igad Amri, about 6 lines up. Igad Amri, others have a different gear, and the whole discussion of who's our Mishnah. Same issue. Who's our Mishnah? That the husband is not responsible for his wife's karbanos. If he's responsible, then it should be holy. Montana, I'm Rav Chisda, Rav Yudi. Here it goes opposite. Rav Chisda said after Rav Yudah, not the Rabbanan. Because and as far as we said a second ago, that even though he's obligated to pay for her karbanos, but only if she needs it at the end. Here she doesn't need it at the end, so he didn't mean to obligate himself. He's not obligated for that. But the Gemara does finish saying in Rav Yehuda, same as Rav said in the first version, Rav Chisda says in the second version, but in the first version it was going that it only can be Rabbanan. It can even be Rav Yehuda. Now the Gemara is saying it can only be Rav Yehuda. And what do Rabbanan hold? That that a person is not obligated. So the Rabbanan, it can't be the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan lo mishaber laklal. There's no issue at all, and the Mishnah wouldn't talk about if she designated his karbanos. She has no right to designate his karbanos. The case wouldn't make sense. It only can make sense if he told her, I'm going to give you an animal. I'll give you an animal for the karbanos. Means like manavshav. He's not. She has no right to take his karbanos. What she's taking his karbanos for? She wouldn't take his karbanos if he's not obligated. So the Mishnah must mean that he gave it to her. He told her, "My wife, I'll pay for your Nazir's karbanos." So then, even if it is going to be discontinued, so it would be hers. Belong to her, and it would have the same halacha as if it would have been his. Rav Chisda doesn't see a difference between if it's her animal or it's his animal that he gave her. If it's his animal that he's obligated and he didn't give it to her, just he's obligated to take care of her karbanos, then he could say as far as that he's only obligated if it goes through, if it follows through till the end. But if it got discontinued, then he doesn't have to pay for it. But if he, of his own will, decided to give her an animal, so it's her animal. And there's no difference if he gave it to her or that it's her own animal. Now it became her animal. And therefore, if it was discontinued, she would have to do the same thing as it says by her karbanos, that the chatas is tavos and the olos are olos, shlamim is shlamim. So if Chisda doesn't see how it could be Rabbi Rabbanan, it can only be Rabbi Yehuda. Make sense? Is it going well? That according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can say this chiluk that he's obligated, but he's only obligated when if it follows through. If it didn't finish, he's not obligated. But in Rabbanan, manavshach, he's not obligated at all. She has no business touching his animal. And if the case is that he gave it to her, so then it's hers, and then it has all the lachas of her animal. And even though it was discontinued, the animal would be holy. So if Chisda doesn't see how it could be Rabbanan, only Rabbi Yehuda. And Ahmed Beis, Rabbi says it could even be Rabbanan also. Rabbi Amra, afilu tema Rabbanan, ki makni la nami b'milsa d'tzrichala, b'milsa l'tzrichala lo makni la. You can say the same story even if he gave it to her. When he gave it to her, he didn't give her a present style and say, "My dear wife, here's a sheep." He said, "You need karbanos for the Nazirus, so I'm giving it to you." But that's also understood only if she needs it. But if it's going to be discontinued, so then it doesn't belong to her. He didn't give it to her for that, and therefore it goes back into the pasture and it's chulin. What did the Mishnah say so far with the Gemara? That if it's his animals, then it goes back to chulin since it was discontinued. So even though when she made the neder she was a Nazira, but since it was discontinued, the animal that was his is chulin, either because the obligation that he has for bringing her karbanos is only if it's mamash koyib at the end. But if that's discontinued, the Torah didn't obligate him to be a zoriz and to designate it earlier, so she had no right to designate it. And even if he gave her a present, Rabbi says, but he gave her a present for the purpose of bringing karbanos, he only meant to give it to her if she needs it. If she doesn't need it, he never gave her such a present. So that's why we're going the whole Gemara. There's only Megas guys. We didn't mention.
Why the Rabbanan unholding?
We talked to Mishnah. We're going Megas guys, and we're saying that
Why they're letting it go back?
Because she had no right to designate his animal because of his ownership. Nothing. The Nazirus is a Nazirus before. It didn't go uprooted retroactively. It's discontinued from now on. But if it's his animal, she had no right, and he has no obligation to bring the karbanos until she's actually mechuyev to bring the karban. She's not going to bring this karban over here because she's not in the zero. It was discontinued. So if it's his animal, he doesn't have to give it, and therefore it's chulin. Then the Mishnah spoke about the next part of the Mishnah. If it was her animal, so it talks about her animal, and the Gemara wants to know, how does she have an animal? How does a woman have an animal? Everything belongs to the husband. Where does
into the marriage?
She brought it into the marriage.
Animals. What's wrong with that?
So when she brings in animals, what happens to them? So the husband obligates himself to pay back the amount if he ever divorces her, That's called,
And
if
he can
it's
eat
next
from-
state on
he can
Brazel.
eat from the.
There's either there's payroll, either two ways, either next state on Brazel or next state Malug. But I don't know the sugis well. There's going to be two issues. One is called Mashkan Sichkana Baila, and
What?
whatever she acquires, he acquires.
That's
And
in Hebrew.
Mashkan Sichkana Baila, whatever a woman.
Mashkana Isha.
Isn't that in during the marriage, not before?
So whatever she brought in, that's going to be a question if it's next state on Brazel or next state Malug. If it's next state on Brazel, also it goes to the husband. The husband acquires it now, and now he owes her anything. If he's ever going to divorce her or die first, so then he owes her that amount of money. But the animals belong to him. Next state Malug, he has the right to have they're supposed to sell it, whatever, or use it in a way that it makes payros. And don't know if I don't know if she'd be able to sell it. That's a sugi in Ksubis. If she's able to sell the next state Malug, I think not.
If she
So
does,
she doesn't
I think we
have-
I don't
will
know.
then want-
Okay, we learned about that. I forgot the details over there.
Mashkana Isha, not,
Gonna buy.
means she doesn't take one of it.
That's what it seems to. Whatever she acquires, it belongs to the husband. So how could it? How is
So
it
how
possible
could
for
it
her
be
to
that
have
she
an
has-
animal? Amara Papa, she comes on Meisasa that she kamatsta Meisasa. So
She
she,
jumped.
no, not kafatz, but kamatz.
So
Kamatz is to
Comments.
like a
She made
kamsa, a
smaller,
kamsan,
she made
a
some-
kamsan, a kam, right? Somebody. No, that's what they
That's what this is, not comments.
like a kamsan.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Like, oh, there's a kamsan. There's a kamsan. That's okay. But a kamsan is somebody who's a stingy. Somebody's stingy. Someone. But the point is that she ate less than she needed. She got her food and she didn't eat all the food. She has leftover food. So that leftover food belongs to her. The husband gave her food, but she didn't eat all of it. He gave her a half a loaf of bread a day, and she only ate a quarter. So she has leftover, and she saved up. So here it seems to say that leftover food that she gets, so she's allowed to keep for herself. Tosha has problems with that. Tosha talks about it more, but that's what Agamar seems to say. Tosha has kashas that even the leftover food also goes to the husband. So that's a sugya someplace else.
Didn't Rivka have her own fault?
No, the Rivka took it. Oh, you think because that's it? Rashi brings down that she had. That's the kasha. How did Rivka have a right to give? Because she gave it to him. That's not such a kasha. She gave it to him. She gave it to her. She gave it to her husband. Is it a kasha? How she took the two goats?
She took it because she knew.
She's going to give it to him.
husband.
She's giving it to him. She's making lunch for him. Oh, Rashi says that the
Right.
Huksuba, Rashi brings down that
It
the
wasn't
Huksuba, she has a right to get
necessarily
to.
hers.
Rashi, afraid of Rashi. Rashi L'chomer says that she had two goats a day. She got for Huksuba 2 goats a day. That was the present that Yitzchak gave her.
Present that
and
he
the
gave her.
He's a very generous husband.
2 goats a day.
It could be,
Okay.
I don't know, $1,000 a day.
$1,000.
Okay.
Not $500.
Okay, so that's one answer that she saved up from her daily rations, and she saved up money and she bought an animal. That's called her own animal. Even same another case, the Akhtila, Acher, somebody else gave her a present. V'amala, amana she'em ba'al kushus b'hem. I'm giving it to you on the condition that your husband shouldn't have any rights to it. So here it says that it's possible for a woman to own something that her husband doesn't have rights to. If someone gave her a present, then specified that I don't want your husband to have any rights to it, and then it belongs to her, and he doesn't own it at all. But if someone gave it to her specifically, so then and said the husband has no rights to it, so then she does own it.
What's the word akni?
To be makna, to give to
But
a
it sounds
client.
like
No, it's Aramaic.
it's Aramaic. Akni.
Akila acher.
Somebody
Somebody else
her.
gave it to her. Was makna to her. Taisa has a problem that we learned in the Dorim. Here it's in the Taisa here. Bamala. So Taisa has the problem with the Peches over there. It talks about, if you remember the case everybody remembers, that the father-in-law wanted to give something to his daughter, and the son-in-law shouldn't have a chiluk in it. How is it possible for? And then he made a hana, this mother hana that is not allowed to benefit his son-in-law, and he wants to give something to his daughter. So over there it says he gives it to his daughter and says that your husband shouldn't have rights to it, only what you put into your mouth, which sounds like very extreme. That he's saying I'm not even giving it to you. He wants to give it to his daughter, but in order that to keep his the husband out, because the husband's not allowed to benefit from him, so he has to say, "I'm giving it to you, and I'm not even giving it to you. Only when it goes into your mouth, it's you can swallow it, but it's mine." So that seems to be against Al Gemara. Al Gemara says as long as somebody says if your husband doesn't have rights to it,
Then you do it.
and Rav says over there that it has to. Rav says like this that Dafka, if you say, I'm sorry, Rav says you have to say, and it's not yours until you eat it. And Shmuel over there said that you don't have to say that. Shmuel would fit with Al Gemara. Rav seems to be against Al Gemara. And Tosh says Al Gemara means the same thing. That Al Gemara also means the same thing. That someone gave her this animal. I'm not going into the details. I mean, I don't know the details here, but it says that she can't own it either. The person's not giving it to her. but that's called her animal, and it does become a holy animal. So I'm not clear about all that, but it seems to be that the Gemara here says that there's another concept over there in the dome that says Yad Isha Kiyad Baila, that is not much considered his hand. There's a mayor, and it seems to be a more extreme opinion. Not only much Isha Baila, I don't know, but this is the Gemara just talking about how is it possible a woman should own any animals. It gives two examples: either she saved up from her money, from her rations of food that she's entitled to, and that she's allowed to keep that, or that someone gave her a present and said your husband shouldn't have any rights to it. And there's more studies about that, about the acquisitions of a wife that the husband shouldn't have any rights to. The rest of the Gemara goes on our Mishnah that said, what do you do with the chatas? You bring tamus, right? And then you bring all the shlomim is a fancy shlomim that it's only going to be eaten for one day, but you don't bring the breads. Usually by korban Nazir, so they have breads to bring. What does it say in the pasuk? She brings a sal matzos, soles, halos, bululos, bashem, and the kike masas, pashucha bashem, two kinds of breads. And over there says that the korban of the shlomim goes together with these breads. And our Mishnah says that here she's not a Nazir because it was discontinued. So she brings the shlomim as a shlomim that's eaten within one day. You give the chumrah of the ayil shlomim, but of the el Nazir. But you don't have this halacha breads because the Ma'aseh is not a Nazir. So here goes the Gemara. Amalei Shmuel Avua Bar Ihi. I don't know who that is, but Shmuel said Avua Bar Ihi Lo Seisav Al Karich Adam Rasli Adam Milsa. Don't sit down on your foot. So I think it means sitting on your foot means you used to sit on the floor and fold their legs. That's called sitting down. Like don't sit down.
Don't relax me.
Don't relax until you tell me the pshat in this
Is that nice?
quiz. Is that
a nice way to tell someone like that?
maybe it's a Talmud?
Shmuel, it's Avua Bat Shmuel.
Avua Bar Ihi. I don't know Avua Bar Ihi.
That's a mark to
Old guy,
the
no?
Milsa.
How do you know who it is? Maybe Shmuel.
Avua is,
What's his name?
oh, it's not father.
Avua Bar Ihi.
So it's a father Ba'i. Okay, I take it back.
Avua Bar Ihi. He's the son of Ihi.
Oh, so Avua is the name of a person. Okay,
He's
it could be a good friend.
They could be they're 20 years younger. They could be 40. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question, but I think that. So he thought, don't sit down until you answer me this riddle. I don't know if it's a riddle. If it's a brisa, maybe it's a brisa, maybe it's his own riddle. I don't know. So he asked him, don't sit down until you get the answer. The following are 4 grams of a Nazir, obviously, that don't need bread. You bring the el Nazir without the breads, and it says even I'll tell you the highlights, the kotarot, the titles. Shalom, shalach hamisa, shalach hakapara. I'm missing a little bit highlighting over there. His kapara word also. Those are the 4. So tell me what they are. Explain the 4 kinds of elim that don't need bread. His, hers, after death, and after kapara. So now he's going to answer it. I think that Abu Bari got all of them. And now just to zoom out, that he's going to get shalom, and then lachamisa, and then lacha kapara. He's going to explain the 4. So we know one of them already. We know the first one, shalah hadamorin. That's our Mishnah. That a woman who designated her animal, and then at the end it was discontinued because the husband was made for the Nazirus. So she brings the shlomim, but there's no bread. Don't bring any bread. That's number 1. That's the case of Shalah. What's the case of Shalah? So in our Mishnah it wouldn't make sense because in our Mishnah it goes to the flock. It goes back home. It's chulin. So what does Shalah mean? So he found the case. The Tanan, Ha'ish Madi ben Nazir. So this is a Mishnah later on, not so much ahead of us. And it's a new concept we never heard of. Ha'ish Madi ben Nazir. A man could make his son to be a Nazir. A man is talking about a son who's a katan. He makes my son's going to be a Nazir, and he makes him a Nazir. The son has a right to not accept. He doesn't have to accept. But if he doesn't protest, so he becomes a Nazir. The father has the authority to make his son a Nazir. But a woman cannot. The mother cannot. The father could. The father could say, "My son is a Nazir," and he becomes a Nazir. But he has the right to say no. But if he doesn't say no, so then he's a Nazir. What if he took a haircut? If he took a haircut, so that means he's making a protest that he doesn't want to be a Nazir. The Nazir means he can't take a haircut, but he took a haircut, or the relatives gave him a haircut. So that's all. The relatives also have a right to protest, not only the boy himself. So then, or even if they didn't do a haircut, do an action, But Micha, but he said, I don't want. Or Shemichu Krovim, or the relatives told him to say, I don't want. So it's discontinued. So this is another example. What do we do over here? We found another case where the Nazirus is discontinued. That's the big mitzvah we found. So far, we only had it by, usually it's not discontinued. We found a case by a woman who her husband was Mayfair. That's how it became a discontinued Nazirus. But here is going to be a case of another case of discontinued Nazirus, that a man made his son to be a Nazir and it got discontinued. And they're the same case. Mamash is saying now from here on it's going to be the same as our Mishnah. The same thing with the what do you do with the Karbanos now? How you lomos stumin, yiflul in a dava. If there had been money that was designated for this Nazirus, but it was not specified what it's supposed to be for, everything goes to a Karban Ola. Most Mefirashim, if there was specified monies, so the Mechatas Yelchul Yamamelach. Same as our Mishnah, that is a discontinued Nazirus, so since it was a Korban, so you have to treat it as if it was a Korban, even though now it's not. If you had money designated for a Chatas, that goes to the Yamamelach. The Me'ola, Yaviu Ola, Umolan Ben. Same as our Mishnah, that you bring a Korban Ola and it's full Kodesh and it's Mila. And the Mei Shlamim, Yaviu Shlamim Ben Echad Yom Echad, the Ein Tun and Lechem. That's what we're looking for. We were looking for Ein Tun and Lechem. This is a case of his, means that his the father's animal, but he doesn't bring the breads because now it was discontinued. Mm-hmm. So we got the second case. What's the case of Lacham Misa? That's a simple case that the Nazir died. If Nazir designated animals and then he died, so what do you do with the animal now? It was a korban. He made himself made a korban. That's not the Tanya. Hamafish Mos Naziruso. If someone's designated money for his korban of Nazirus, this aside, this is not negated to us. That you might say that in the money that's designated for the old and the shlamim, so it should be meila because it's going to become a korban. That's chayv and meila. Oh, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. A chatas there should be meila and the ola there should be meila, but a shlamim there's no meila until after the zrikas adam. So here it says that it's a chiddush that if he designated money that includes three korbanos, a chatas, the ola and the shlamim, so lo nen and there is no meila. You're not allowed to be nana from the money, but there's no meila. Why not? If he wants to, he can use all the money for the shlamim, and by the shlamim, there's no mila until after the zrikas adam, that it's designated to Hashem. Since before that, some of it is designated for people to eat, so there's no mila and a korban shlamim until after the zrika. Maybe to turn off the heat, it's like nobody's enjoying it. So that's the halacha of this. That's a side law that's not relative to us. Well, it's good to know, but it's not relative to us now. Now the case is made. So we're looking for this, but this is what we're looking for. We even can put this part in parentheses if we want, because that's not our subject. We're going to bring a proof about Lacham Misa. If the Nazir died, so the shlamim is brought without lechem. That's what we're looking for. So here it says, Mace, if the Nazir died, then he had money that was designated but not specified what it's for. If you learn a dava, mamash carry on as usual, that's same as our Mishnah, then the money goes for korban ola. Most Russian, if he did have specified monies for chatas ola and shlamim, the mechatas yolach melach, because since he died, you're not going to use it as a korban chatas, so you can't use that. It's a korban, but you have to let it die. And if it's at money, so then put it into Yam Melech. Then there's no mila because it's not going to actually be brought as a korban. The me'ola yaviu ola molen ben, that's a regular korban ola. The me'shlamim here, that's what we're looking for. Yaviu shlamim v'nechad l'yomechad ve'in tuna lechem. Once again, ein tuna lechem. So we found the case of Lacham Misa. The Nazir who dies, the animal is brought as a korban shlamim, and you don't bring the bread. So that was the third case, and the fourth case is Lacha Kapara. What does Lacha Kapara mean? A case where he bought if for some reason he had two korbanos shlamim, he bought one, the other one you don't need anymore. Like the case would be that I got lost and he designated another one, and then they found the first one. So what do you do with the korban shlamim, which is not going to be used? Svara who there's no fair Mishnah or Brisa, but it's a svara. Shalacham is in my time the Chazil Kapara. How come after the Nazir dies, it goes you bring the animal without bread because it's not going to be used as the kapara because he's not here anymore. That's why you don't bring the bread. Shalacha kapara nami, chazil kapara. So no difference if he died or if he's alive and he had the korban already. So he's not going to get a kapara because he has a kapara already. So therefore, the korban shlamim is brought without bread. So we found Avua Bar found the four cases shalosh lachamis shalacha kapara. All those cases you bring the El Nazir without the breads. There was a kasha for Suleka. That's all you found. There are more cases. Va'ika. Ushar kol shalmi nazir sheshachtan shalom kimitzvasan. ksherim v'lo olin lebalan l'shem chova v'necholin yom echad v'eintun al lechem v'lo zroa. Any kind of psul that happened to this shlomim was made shalokim mitzvasan. Shachtan shalokim mitzvasan. It would be shalom l'shma, or some psul happened over there. So it says that some psul of the korban shlom of the what would be the case. One case is shalom l'shma. What's another case? Someone said here it says here. Rashi says he brought ben shtei shonim all the same and shalom l'shem shalom. No, so he brought the wrong age. It was not the right age, or it's supposed to be the El Nazir. He brought the wrong age, or he brought the korban shalom l'shma. So the din is that it's kosher, but it's not all the lebalam l'shem chova. That they don't get credit for it, has to be another korban. But you see that it is kosher. What do you do with a kosher korban that's not going to be all the l'shem chova? It's eaten for one day, the chumrah of El Nazir, but ain't tonin al lechem v'lo zroa, that there is no bread. That's what we're looking for. Ain't tuna lechem. Most of those draw, there's not going to be the din as draw b'shelim and a ayi that you cook it. Also not going to have that. So the Gemara is asking, how come you only found 4 cases? There are more cases of a nazir without a korban. The answer is kimisvasin kachashiv. We're finished already. So I'm sorry. This is one more. This is like we can continue something else, but kimisvasin kachashiv shalom kimisvasin lo kachashiv. That Raisa or whatever this 4 list, the Elohin Abo Elim, is only talking about kosher korbanos. It's not talking about non-kosher korbanos. So this one is not non-kosher. It's kosher, but it's not all l'shem chova. That we're only talking about ones that were done correctly. This was done incorrectly. We're not talking about that. We're talking about all these animals. Everything was done correctly. Shalah was the case where she was her own animal. Then it was discontinued. Shalom was the case of the father who made his son a nazir, and it was discontinued. La'achar misa means that the nazir died. He didn't do anything wrong. He just died. And the case of shlacha kapora was that he brought a different aisle already. Now he doesn't need this one anymore. So those are the 4 cases. Everything was done kimisvasan, and still you don't bring the bread. But there are more cases that would be shlach kimisvasan. That could have been also.
Yeah. What does chashiv mean?
Is it listing? It's listing only the ones that were made properly. It's not listing the ones that were not made properly, like
kosher,
like cheshbon. But the word chashiv means that it's listing. It's listing only the ones that were made properly. Kimisvasan kachashiv. It's listing the ones that were made properly. Shalom kimisvasan lo kachashiv. The ones that were not made properly is listing. Okay, yeshikach everybody. Thank you.